Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and over the course of the past few weeks, we've talked about everything there is to know about Pioneer Dimir Aggro. And I wanted to compile them all into one comprehensive deep dive on this deck. Enjoy. This is Dimir Aggro in Pioneer. It's very similar to the Dimir midrange deck in Standard, in the sense that it plays a bunch of creatures that are evasive and then capitalizes on those evasive creatures with ninjutsu from Kaido and then other ninjutsu cards like Moon Circuit Hacker, Shadow, Thousand Face Shadow, etc., etc. And then also draw a ton of cards off of Enduring Curiosity on top of all of that. Also backing that up with some counter magic, some hand destruction in Thoughtseize, and spot removal in Fatal Push and Go for the Throat. So the point of the strategy, again, is to play these evasive creatures, draw a ton of cards off of our ninjutsu creatures and Enduring Curiosity, use that card advantage to answer stuff one for one and win the game. As far as card choices in the deck itself goes, the lands are pretty straightforward. I guess the only kind of weird thing happening is there's four Mutavault. It being a two-color deck means mana is pretty easy. But also, Mutavault is another creature that can be attacking and ninjutsu'd, and frankly, something that can be replayed without having to spend more mana, which is really nice. And, you know, Ottawa is just free, frankly. Now, as far as one-drops go, we're playing 4 Fairy Miscreant. It's a 1-mana 1/1 with flying, and when it enters, if you control another creature named Fairy Miscreant, draw a card. So the beautiful part about this card is we can play it on 1, it's evasive, so we can ninjutsu stuff really, really early, but we're rewarded for returning it to our hand because often we can draw a card when we play the second one. So it's card advantage in and of itself as well. We're playing a single Spell Pierce, help with those non-creature spells, 1 mana counter target non-creature spell, and this controller pays 2. We're playing 2 Spyglass Siren. It's probably a slightly worse version of Fairy Miscreant, but this also played in Standard. It is a 1-mana 1/1 with flying. When it enters, create a map token. Generally strictly worse than drawing an additional card like with Fairy Miscreant, but it also fulfills just like a similar role. A beneficial thing happens when it enters, and we can return it with ninjutsu stuff. Our first ninjutsu card, Thousand Face Shadow, is a 1-mana 1/1 with flying. When it enters from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. The token enters tapped and attacking. So it's really just a 1-mana 1/1, unless we ninjutsu it for 4 mana, and then we get to create a token of something else. That token could be, frankly, anything. We could be drawing a card off of Fairy Miscreant. We could be copying a Moon Circuit Hacker to draw an additional card. We could be tapping something down with Flood Pit's Drowner, which actually doesn't matter because we have to ninjutsu after blockers, but still, we could be copying an Enduring Innocence, etc., etc. It's just very, very, very powerful, especially if it's actually copying an Enduring Innocence, because Thousand Face Shadow also just will exist on the battlefield. It just creates a token of something else, which is beautiful. The issue is kind of hard to get this good, but when it's good, it can just close out games. We're playing 4 Fatal Push as spot removal. It's probably the best removal spell in Pioneer. It's a 1 black instant, destroy target creature if it's mana value 2 or less, and it has Revolt, destroy that creature if it has mana value 4 or less instead of a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, which is actually a lot easier in this deck than normal decks because of ninjutsu. We're playing 4 Thoughtseize to tear apart our opponent's hands, 1-mana sorcery. Target player reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card, and you lose 2 life. Just to make sure they can't answer our stuff and can't do their thing and all that stuff. As far as 2-drops go, we're playing 4 Flood Pit's Drowner, again, capitalizing on this idea that if it's not a ninjutsu card, it's a card that has beneficial enter the battlefield effects. This is a 2-mana 2/1 with Flash and Vigilance. When it enters, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. And we can pay 2 mana and tap it to shuffle Flood Pit's Drowner and target creature with a stun counter on it into their owner's library. So it can be a infinite removal spell, or it can be just tap something down so you can get through with a creature, so you can ninjutsu and even return Flood Pit's Drowner to then tap something down again, etc., etc. It's just very, very, very powerful. We're playing 4 Moon Circuit Hacker. It's a 2-mana 2/1. Whenever Moon Circuit Hacker deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card unless Moon Circuit Hacker entered this turn. So just connecting with Moon Circuit Hacker, already very powerful, but it also ninjutsus for 1 mana, so we can return these things that have beneficial enter the battlefield effects to our hand, be able to play a ninjutsu, draw a card, and now we have something that loots whenever it attacks, and it's a 2-power creature. Playing to Go for the Throat, just to round out our spot removal. It's a 2-mana instant, strike our target non-artifact creature, which is essentially unconditional removal in Pioneer, frankly. We're playing to Enduring Curiosity. Because we have so many evasive things, things, and we can go actually very wide, and we're mostly capitalizing on just burying our opponent in card advantage. It's a 4-mana 4/3 with flash. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, which is so good with evasive creatures. And when Enduring Curiosity dies, if it was a creature returned to the battlefield under its owner's control, it's an enchantment. So also it's difficult to deal with, and you can continue drawing cards with this creature. We're playing 4 Kaido Bane of Nightmares. It's a 4-mana planeswalker that starts at 4 loyalty. Its +1 is again an emblem with ninjas you control get +1/+1. And actually there's a few ninjas in our deck: Thousand Face Shadow, Moonsark Hacker, and Kaido itself. 0, Surveil 2, then draw a card for each opponent who lost life this turn. Very easy with evasive creatures. And then -2, tap target creature, put 2 stun counters on it so it gets things out of the way. However, during your turn, as long as Kaido has 1 or more loyalty counters, he's a 3/4 ninja and has hexproof, and it has ninjutsu for 3. So you can ninjutsu this planeswalker on the battlefield, get card advantage and resource advantage, and pump up your ninjas, which Kaido is a ninja as well. Tap things down, get things out of the way. It's just very, very, very powerful. And of course, be able to replay those beneficial enter the battlefield effects from the thing that Kaido returns. And we're playing 4 Mockingbird. Mockingbird is an X and blue 1/1 with flying. You may have Mockingbird enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, mana value less than or equal to the amount of mana spent to cast Mockingbird, except it's a bird, in addition to its other types, and has flying. Very good copying opponent stuff, but also when everything has decent enter the battlefield effects, it's super good. Also, this is evasive itself, which is great as well. The dream is copying like things like Enduring Curiosity, like I mentioned with Thousand Face Shadow. It's just absolutely disgusting. So again, as far as the main deck goes, you're playing your evasive creatures, you're getting things out of the way, you're tearing apart your opponent's hand, tapping things down, and then when you attack with those invasive creatures, you're returning them to your hand with ninjutsu effects that are beneficial, which then you can recapitalize on those evasive enter the battlefield effects over and over to just bury your opponent in that card advantage. As far as the sideboard goes, we're playing 2 more Spell Pierce, again to deal with those non-creature spells. We're playing 1 Disdainful Stroke as a 2-mana instant. Counter target spell with mana value 4 or greater. Very good against like playing 1 cut down for these aggressive decks, say 1 mana instant, destroy target creature with total power and toughness 5 or less. Super good. Playing 3 Anoint with Affliction. It is a 2 mana instant, exile target creature if its mana value is 3 or less. Very, very good against Enduring Innocence. And also super good against like Heartfire Hero and stuff like that. Also just like generally decent against the aggro decks, but especially the exile removal is just feels very, very good. We're playing 1 Dokuchi. That can't be how you pronounce it. I just heard myself say it. Silencer. There are jokes there. I'm not gonna do it. Nope. The internet is forever. Whenever Dokuchi Silencer deals combat damage to a player, you may discard a creature card. When you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker that player controls. Very often we have additional creatures in our hands because we're returning creatures to our hands really, really often. And this allows us to like effectively be able to remove problematic creatures pretty easily. We're playing 1 Biting Palm Ninja. It's a 3-mana 3/3. Enters with a menace counter on it. And when Biting Palm Ninja deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a menace counter from it. When you do, that player reveals their hand and you choose a non-land card from it, exile that card. Very good if you need additional hand hate, obviously. Playing in a single extinction event as our board wipe of choice. It's a 4-mana sorcery, choose odd or even, exile each creature with mana value of the chosen quantity. Playing 3 Leyline of the Void as our graveyard hate of choice. It's a 4-mana enchantment, however, it's in your opening hand. You may begin with it on the battlefield. And if a card will be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. And then we're playing 2 Shieldred the Apocalypse. It's a 4-mana 4/5 with Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Very good against decks that are drawing a lot of cards, for example, like Phoenix or something, but also really good blocker and adds inevitability, you know, if you need to lean towards the mid-range plan. So this is the Dimir Aggro deck. As far as the sideboard goes, we're playing Spell Pierce for these non-creature spells that may be problematic. Disdainful Stroke against big mana decks. Cut Down for aggressive decks. Anoint with Affliction, we're mostly playing mostly against the aggressive decks, but it has some other applications, being able to exile a card with mana value 3 or less. We're playing Dokuchi Silence, sir, I can't say it with a straight face. Creature Destruction on a stick, allowing us to destroy creatures or planeswalkers. We're playing a Biting Palm Ninja that allows us to attack our opponent's hand while also dealing a bunch of damage. Extinction Event as a board wipe of choice. Leyline of the Void as Graveyard Hate, and then Shieldred to punish decks for drawing a lot of cards, but also as a super decent blocker. And the most popular deck in Pioneer is Rakdos Midrange. Against Rakdos Midrange, I actually like Spell Pierce a lot. Being able to pick off a Fable or an Unholy Annex, both just very, very powerful things to do. And we sort of have to rely on Rakdos Midrange being able to stop us from doing our thing. So I like Shieldred just to be able to apply more pressure and have more threats. I actually think a lot of this game is like sort of a mid-range mirror. And so I like taking out the Thoughtseizes, and while turn 1 Thoughtseize is totally fine, most of these matchups are going to go very, very long. And so a top deck Thoughtseize can be game breaking and awful for us, where a turn 1 Thoughtseize is really going to win us the game. So that's how I sideboard against Rakdos Midrange. The second most popular deck is Gruul Aggro, and we're actually also going to be sideboarding the same against Mono Red Aggro. Against the Gruul Aggro deck, bringing in Cut Down, we're bringing in Anoint with Affliction, Gochuchi Silencer, and I like Shieldred both as a blocker and additional ways to gain life. We really can't let them out aggro us, and so we really have to take out the Thoughtseize. I'm not a big fan of Spell Pierce, like reactive stuff like that, where my opponent has to do something really specific in order for me to do a spell is just awful. And I like taking out Enduring Curiosity. That's not about drawing cards. It is about stopping their aggro. And so this is how I sideboard against Gruul Aggro and Mono Red. The third most popular deck in Pioneer is It Phoenix? I like Spell Pierce because if we can pick off one of their important spells like Treasure Cruise or Artist Talent, it can be really backbreaking for them. Like Leyline of the Void, because it stops them from doing their crazy combo, turns off Treasure Cruise, all of that stuff. And then they draw so many cards that Shieldred is pretty good against them, even though they can answer it pretty cleanly with Lightning Axe. We are going to be taking out Fatal Push because it doesn't really kill anything that's relevant in our opponent's deck. I'm not a giant fan of Spyglass Siren, and I'm a shave on a Thousand Face Shadow. These are just flex slots. It's kind of hard to make Thousand Face Shadow good when they have so many removal spells, and so this is how I'm going to sideboard against It Phoenix. The fourth most popular deck in Pioneer is Nykthos Ramp, Mono Green Devotion, whatever you want to call it. Against this deck, we're bringing in Disdainful Stroke. I also like Cut Down so we can, on turn 1, be able to deal with their mana dorks. My camera turned off, but whatever. Extinction Event wipes their entire board. It's amazing. Shieldred is actually really good against them because they need to draw a lot of cards to combo, so they need to answer the Shieldred before they can combo, which is hilarious. I like Dokuchi Silencer, being able to pick off those creatures, especially those mana dorks, really early in the game is funny, as well as Biting Palm Ninja, being able to tear apart their hand. That being said, bringing out Spell Pierce is most of the time when they cast non-creature spells that are relevant. They already have a ton of mana, so it doesn't really matter. It's not about drawing cards, so I'm not a fan of Enduring Curiosity. Also, another big reason why, Spyglass Siren is only fine. And 3 mana is a lot for a card that's meant to go a little long that is only a little aggressive, so I like shaving on Kaido as well. And so this is how I'm going to sideboard against Nykthos Ramp. The fourth most popular deck is Azorius Control. Against Azorius Control, we're bringing in the Spell Pierces, because they have mostly non-creature spells, Disdainful Stroke, because the things that we're really afraid of are big mana. Biting Palm Ninja to help tear apart their hand, and then Shieldred's good just as additional threats, because we have to take out a whole bunch of stuff. Fatal Push is just god-awful, go for the throat, a little bit better than Fatal Push, but still god-awful, and this high sideboard against Beloit Control. We've already talked about the sixth most popular deck, which is Mono Red Aggro. We sideboard the same as Gruul Aggro, which brings us to the seventh most popular deck, which is the Mirror Match. In the Mirror Match, we like Cut Down. It beats everything but the 4 mana spells. Similar thing with Anoint with Affliction. If we're able to kill the early creatures, then they can't ninjutsu, which is awesome. Dokuchi Silencer for a similar reason, and then Shieldred because the deck just draws so many cards. There's no specific card that is like ridiculous in this deck though. So I like cutting the Thoughtseizes because they're kind of a liability. I like cutting the Spell Pierce, and there's not a lot of non-creature spells that we really care about. And then because it's another black deck that is going to be sideboarding in a lot of removal against me, Thousand Face Shadow is pretty medium, and so this high sideboard against the Dimir Aggro, excuse me, can talk, which is the mirror match. The 8th most popular deck is 5-color Idiomatic Incarnation. Against this deck, we're bringing in Spell Pierce. If we can pick off very specific, relevant non-creature spells, we can just win the game. Similar thing with Disdainful Stroke. Biting Palm Ninja is excellent, being able to tear apart our opponent's hand. And then we're bringing out the Fatal Pushes because it doesn't really kill anything of note, and we're just hoping our deck does the thing. That's how I sideboard against Idiomatic Incarnation. The 9th most popular deck is Jund Sacrifice. Against Jund Sac, we love Leyline of the Void. Turns off a lot of their deck and makes it so they can't combo us. Big fan of Anoint with Affliction. Being able to pick off a cat's kind of cute, but also dealing to Mayhem Devil and Blood Tithe Harvester we love as well. Gonna be siding out of Spell Pierce and these X1s that are really hard to turn on. Remember, there's still a red-black deck, so they draw a lot of cards. Shaving on Flood Pit's Drowner because not a lot of stuff to tap down. So that's how I'm gonna sideboard against Jund Sac. And the 10th most popular deck is Mardu Greasefang. Against Mardu Greasefang, we're bringing in Anoint with Affliction to be able to break up the combo, and then similar thing with Leyline of the Void. It's a little hard for us to turn on Fatal Push to break up the combo, so I'm actually not really down with that. Spell Pierce doesn't really matter, and then we're just going to shave a Spyglass Siren. That's how I sideboard against Mardu Greasefang. So these are the cards that you're pretty much bought into playing if you play Dimir Aggro in Pioneer. These 58 cards in the main deck and these 8 cards in the sideboard. So the question is, when you want to play this deck, what 2 cards are you playing in the main deck, and what 7 cards are you playing in the sideboard? That's what this video is about. Let's look at them. So really, you make a decision between 2 Spyglass Siren and 2 Thousand Face Shadow in the main deck. Spyglass Siren would round out the playset. It is a 1-mana 1/1 with flying. When it enters, create a map token. The map token is an artifact. With 1 mana, you tap it, sacrifice it, and target creature you control explores, and you can activate only as a sorcery. Basically, exploring is reveal the top card. If it's a land card, you put it into your hand. If it's a non-land card, you may leave it on top or put it into your graveyard, and the creature gets a +1/+1 counter. This card's really solid because it's essentially a ninjutsu deck, this Dimir Aggro deck, and having very cheap cards that are evasive, so they are difficult to block, that you can ninjutsu creatures on top of, that also have enter the battlefield effects, is very good, you know, and Spyglass Siren is all of those things. Now it's competing for a slot with Thousand Face Shadow, which is a 1-mana 1/1 with flying. When Thousand Face Shadow enters from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token. That's a copy of another target attacking creature. The token enters tapped and attacking, and it's ninjutsu for 4. So it fulfills the role of being an evasive early creature. It doesn't have a beneficial enter the battlefield ability unless it's ninjutsuing, which then it costs 4. But if you ninjutsu Thousand Face Shadow when you already have a decent board, it can just be an absolute disgusting play. So I think, you know, between these 2 cards, Spyglass Siren you'd be playing for consistency, or Thousand Face Shadow you'd be playing for power. So you're going to pick between those cards in the main deck. As far as the sideboard goes, we have 7 cards to pick from out of these 16. You could play 2 Disdainful Stroke. It's a 2-mana instant, counter target spell with mana value 4 or greater. Very good against the big mana decks like Enigmatic or Bring to Light. You'd be playing Negate. It's a 2-mana instant, counter target non-creature spell. Just good against decks that casts a lot of relevant non-creature spells. Like, I don't know how to talk about that card. You could play Dokuchi Silencer, which I can't be saying that name correctly, is a 2-mana 2/1 with ninjutsu for 2 mana. Whenever Dokuchi Silencer deals combat damage to a player, you may discard a creature card. When you do, destroy a card, creature, a planeswalker that player controls. So just sort of kind of a sneaky way to have removal and discarding cards that don't really matter. We're playing a lot of weak creatures in our deck that we don't want in the late game, and Dokuchi Silencer is kind of a cute way to deal with our opponent's creatures. Also, it's a must block, which is interesting. We could be playing 2 Biting Palm Ninja. It's a 3-mana 3/3 with ninjutsu for 3. When it enters with a menace counter on it, and when Biting Palm Ninja deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a menace counter from it. When you do, that player reveals their hand. You choose an online card from it, exile that card. This card is excellent against decks that we both want to be aggressive against, but also it's important that we have additional hand destruction against. We're playing a Path of Peril. It's a 3-mana sorcery with cleave that we're just never going to cleave it, but it says destroy all creatures with mana value 2 or less. Good against the aggressive decks. You know, that's where we're at. We could be playing an Extinction Event. Extinction Event is a 4-mana sorcery. Choose odd or even. Exile each creature with a mana value of the chosen quantity. 0 is even. This is very good against the mono green deck, but also just like a decent board wipe against decks that we are pretty sure we're going to be falling behind in the creature department on board. We could be playing 2 I'm gonna butcher this. Mukatai Ambusher. Oh, I think I did a okay job. It's a 4-mana 3/2 with lifelink and Ninjutsu for 2. So this is really good against the aggressive decks in the sense you can like turn 1 Spyglass Siren, turn 2 attack ninjutsu. This card gain 3 and now you have a 3/2 lifelinker. That feels really good. You can be playing 3 Leyline of the Void. Leyline of the Void is a 4-mana enchantment. If Leyline of the Void is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. If a card will be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So this is a card that we don't have to invest any mana into because it's a very mana-hungry deck, and we have to be like essentially double spelling every turn. And it's just graveyard hate that, you know, we can mulligan into. We could be playing an Oil Deep Gearhulk. Oil Deep Gearhulk is a 4-mana 4/4 with lifelink and ward. When the creature enters, look at target player's hand. You may choose a card from it. If you do, that player discards that card, then draws a card. So it Vidillion clicks your opponent. Also, it's a lifelink ward, has a beneficial enter the battlefield effect, so it's fun to ninjutsu it over and over and just tear apart your opponent's hand. Having lifelink is relevant, and it's only 4 mana too. And then we can play up to 2 Ghost Vacuum. This would be competing for slots with Leyline of the Void. It's a 1-mana artifact. We can tap it to exile a card from a graveyard. And we pay 6 mana and tap it to sacrifice Ghost Vacuum. Put each creature card exiled the Ghost Vacuum onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit in addition to their other types. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is graveyard hate that, yes, you have to invest mana into, but then it's just kind of on a stick. You can target specific cards. Not very good at keeping the graveyard empty like Leyline of the Void is, but also you don't have to mulligan into it like Leyline of the Void. And another benefit of Ghost Vacuum is in the deep late game, you can just pop Ghost Vacuum and essentially win the game, getting a ton of 1/1s from creatures you've exiled both from your opponent's graveyard and yours. So you're going to be picking 7 of these 16 cards for your sideboard, either Spyglass Siren or Thousand Face Shadow for your main deck. And then you have your very own but stock version of Dimir Aggro in Pioneer. First off is understanding the overall strategy of the deck. What they're attempting to do is combine ninjutsu and cool enter the battlefield effects from evasive creatures. So they have cards like Flood Pit Drowner, Fairy Miscreant, Spyglass Siren that they want to enter the battlefield. And in fact, it can enter the battlefield multiple times because when they attack with them, they're all evasive in their own way. They can ninjutsu with Kaido or Moon Circuit Hacker or even Thousand Face Shadow to return that card to their hand. The ninjutsu'd card is just like does something very powerful when you ninjutsu it, and then you can replay that enter the battlefield effect and just kind of overwhelm your opponent with value, essentially. You have to understand that that's the thing that Dimir Aggro is doing. This becomes even more powerful with cards like Mockingbird. Mockingbird being evasive in and of itself, so it's really good to ninjutsu, but also every time it enters, it can copy a different thing that is good for the situation. In addition, having all of these evasive creatures helps Kaido not just because of the ninjutsu, but its 0 is Surveil 2, then draw a card for each opponent who lost life this turn. And so even if you're just dealing 1 damage in the air with Spyglass Siren or Fairy Miscreant, you can then 0 Kaido and be able to Surveil 2 and draw a card, which is delicious. Similarly, Enduring Curiosity is loving all of these evasive creatures because it gets to draw a card whenever it deals combat damage to the opponent, even if it's just 1 damage in the air. And so this deck is just so good at capitalizing on having small evasive creatures through ninjutsu, and just like dealing that combat damage is very powerful as well. And so it forces you to spend removal spells on 1/1 flyers and things like that, which is just awful. It's just awful. The last kind of tip and trick I wanted to mention was Mutavault. So Mutavault, yes, it is not evasive, but it's a land that we can man up and attack, and then we can ninjutsu Mutavault, which honestly is pretty good when we're in a pinch, because when we ninjutsu, good stuff happens, like, you know, Moon Circuit Hacker lets us draw cards, etc., etc., and then we can just replay Mutavault as the land for turn, which is pretty good, especially if we like want to ninjutsu something but also want a blocker and we have a bunch of mana. We can attack with Mutavault, ninjutsu Mutavault, do the ninjutsu stuff, and then replay Mutavault untapped and be able to block with it. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.